Hey everybody, this is your buddy Carl. Today's Bible reading. Sorry I don't have my little microphone, so I'm going to speak up a bit. We're just doing it on my laptop. And we're going to pick it up here on February the 4th. We're still reading in Exodus chapter 19. We're picking it up at verse 16. And here we go. So the Lord is revealing himself at Mount Sinai to Moses. All right, he's telling the people, gather around the mountain, but don't cross this border, otherwise you'll die. So God's appearing. This is pretty powerful stuff. So back to verse 14 there. So Moses went down to the people. He consecrated them for worship, and they washed their clothes. He told them, get ready for the third day. Until then, abstain from having sexual intercourse. Verse 16, on the morning of the third day, thunder roared and lightning flashed, and a dense cloud came down on Mount Sinai. There was a long, loud blast from a ram's horn, and all the people trembled. Now, it doesn't tell us, did one of the priests blow a ram's horn, or was there a sound of the ram's horn? I believe it was actually angelic, or the Lord released this sound. So there you go. That was the sound of the ram's horn. Moses led them out from the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. All of Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord had descended on it in the form of fire. So there's smoke on the mountain, and there's the fire of God on the mountain. Imagine that awesome, fearful, horrifying sight, really, in a way. The smoke billowed into the sky like smoke from a brick kiln, and the whole mountain shook violently. As the blast of the ram's horn grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God thundered his reply. The Lord came down on the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses climbed the mountain. Then the Lord told Moses, go back down and warn the people not to break through the boundaries to see the Lord, or they will die. Wow. Even the priests who regularly come near to the Lord must purify themselves so that the Lord does not break out and destroy them. But Lord, Moses protested, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai. You already warned us. You told me, mark off a boundary all around the mountain to set it apart as holy. But the Lord said, go down and bring Aaron back up with you. In the meantime, do not let the priest or the people break through to approach the Lord, or he will break out and destroy them. Interesting thing, they're there to worship the Lord, but in that time, their proximity was limited. Amazing. Verse 25, so Moses went down to the people and told them what the Lord had said. Here we go. Chapter 20 of Exodus, the 10 commandments for the covenant community. So here you go. Then God gave the people all these instructions. I am the Lord your God, who rescued you from the land of Egypt, the place of your slavery. You must not have any other God but me. You must not make for yourself an idol of any kind or an image of anything in the heavens or on the earth or in the sea. You must not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God who will not tolerate your affection for any other gods. Yes, Lord. Wow. I lay the sins of the parents upon their children. The entire family is affected. Even children in the third and fourth generations of those who reject me. But I lavish unfailing love for 1,000 generations on those who love me and obey my commands. Verse 7, you must not misuse the name of the Lord your God. The Lord will not let you go unpunished if you misuse his name. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the seventh day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy. Honor your father and mother. Then you will live a long, full life in the land the Lord your God is giving you. You must not murder. You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You must not testify falsely against your neighbor. You must not covet your neighbor's house. You must not covet your neighbor's wife, male or female servant, ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor. That's the 10 Commandments, folks, right there. Verse 18, when the people heard the thunder and the loud blast of the ram's horn, and when they saw the flashes of lightning and the smoke billowing from the mountain, they stood at a distance, trembling with fear. And they said to Moses, "You speak to us, and we will listen, but don't let God speak directly to us, or we will die." "Don't be afraid," Moses answered them, "for God has come in this way to test you, and so that your fear of him will keep you from sinning." As the people stood in the distance, Moses approached the dark cloud where God was. And the Lord said to Moses, "Say this to the people of Israel. You saw for yourselves that I spoke to you from heaven. Remember, you must not make any idols of silver or gold to rival me. Build for me an altar made of earth and offer your sacrifices to me, your burnt offerings and peace offerings, your sheep and goats and your cattle. Build my altar wherever I cause my name to be remembered, and I will come to you and bless you. If you use stones to build my altar, use only natural, uncut stones." How about that? "Do not shape the stones with a tool, for that would make the altar unfit for holy use. And do not approach my altar by going up steps. If you do, someone might look up under your clothing and see your nakedness." Wow, God's really laying out the rules for worship at this time. Verse 21, or chapter 21, and we're going to read 21 through verse 21. Okay, yes, correct. Exodus chapter 21 to 21. Here we go. "These are the regulations you must present to Israel. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he must serve for no more than 6 years. Set him free in the 7th year, and he will owe you nothing for his freedom. If he was single when he became your slave, he shall leave single. But if he was married before he became a slave, then his wife must be freed with him." Even there, God's honoring the covenant of marriage. Even under that circumstance, they shouldn't be divided. Verse 4, "If his master gave him a wife while he was a slave, and they had sons or daughters, then only the man will be free in the 7th year, but his wife and children will still belong to his master." That just seems strange, Lord, but there you go, in that time. "But the slave may declare, 'I love my master, my wife, and my children. I don't want to go free.' If he does this, his master may present him before God. Then his master must take him to the door or doorpost and publicly pierce his ear with an awl. After that, the slave will serve his master for life." Oh, wow. Amazing. In that time, to keep the family together, a man may stay. Such strange times, but so it was. Verse 7, "When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years as the men are. If she does not satisfy her owner, he must allow her to be bought back again." Wow, but he is not allowed to sell her to foreigners, since he is the one who broke the contract with her. But if the slave's owner arranges for her to marry his son, he may no longer treat her as a slave, but as a daughter. If a man who has married a slave wife takes another wife for himself, he must not neglect the rights of the first wife to food, clothing, and sexual intimacy. If he fails in any of these three obligations, she may leave as a free woman without making any payment. Such strange ways the Lord allowed to be in action in that time. We just have to think of it in that dispensation of history. Such a strange time. Verse 12, anyone who assaults and kills another person must be put to death. I'm reading all the way to 21. Wow. Anyone who assaults and kills another person must be put to death, but if it was simply an accident permitted by God, I will appoint a place of refuge where the slayer can run for safety. However, if someone deliberately kills another person, then the slayer must be dragged even from my altar and put to death. Wow, Lord. Anyone who strikes father or mother must be put to death. Wow, such harsh times. Kidnappers must be put to death, whether they are caught in possession of their victims or have already sold them as slaves. Wow. Anyone who dishonors father or mother must be put to death. Now suppose two men, folks, so I just have to interject. I feel like the Lord's saying, folks, this is why Jesus had to fulfill the requirements of the law. We don't do that nowadays. In this dispensation, if you're a lover of the law, all the law is good. All the Old Testament is God teaching us something about his interacting with mankind in that time, folks. We have to understand it in that light. We don't stone people that disrespect their parents nowadays. We don't kill them. That's not the way it's done now. Was it that way in history? I guess so. It happened. And in that community, it would have been terribly harsh. My word. But that's why we recognize as Jesus fulfilling the requirements and the punishment of the law in his death and crucifixion and pouring out of his blood. So you just have to understand it in that light. Verse 18, I'm going to move on. Now suppose two men quarrel, and one hits the other with a stone or a fist, and the injured person does not die, but is confined to a bed. If he is later able to walk outside again, even with a crutch, the assailant will not be punished, but he must compensate his victim for lost wages and provide for his full recovery. If a man beats his male or female slave with a club and the slave dies as a result, the owner must be punished. Wow, since the slave is his property. Wow. Oh, sorry. He must be punished. But if the slave recovers within a day or two, then the owner shall not be punished, since the slave is his property. Wow, such harsh laws in that time, folks. It's just not the way we operate nowadays, and shouldn't. In the age of grace, in the age of the change of the law, in a New Testament, in a new covenant, it's different. Okay, that's up to Exodus 21:21. Man, so much to unpack there. If you were to study more the depth of the writings and the law, it would be, I gave you a hint of how that's resolved in the New Covenant time. Let's move on. Psalm 28 today. Psalm 28, Psalm of David. I pray to you, O Lord my rock, do not turn a deaf ear to me, for if you are silent, I might as well give up and die. Listen to my prayer for mercy as I cry out to you for help, as I lift up my hands towards your holy sanctuary. Do not drag me away with the wicked and with those who do evil, those who speak friendly words to their neighbors while planning evil in their hearts. Give them the punishment they so richly deserve. Measure it out in proportion to their wickedness. Pay them back for all their evil deeds. Give them a taste of what they have done to others. They care nothing for what the Lord has done or for what his hands have made. So he will tear them down and they will never be rebuilt. Okay, sorry. Have to take a pause. The Lord is reminding us this is, again, why Jesus fulfilled the law. Folks, we don't pray like this anymore. Plus, you're not going to get dragged away with the wicked. And we don't want people to be punished. We don't desire people to come under God's judgment. The end of time will take care of that. Just have to remember, we bless our enemies. We don't speak cursings to people. We don't wish harm on anyone, even the evil, even evil people, what we might consider horrible people. Jesus does not let us, he doesn't want us to speak that way in this time. Always remember that. Under the age of grace and mercy and kindness. Remember the phrase, I'm sorry I don't know chapter and verse at this point, but we'll see it later. Mercy triumphs over justice. And Jesus compels us to pray for our enemies. Bless those that curse us. This is the way of Jesus. This is the old covenant. And David was pouring out his heart according to his understanding at the time. So, not putting down King David, but you just have to understand where people's mindset and what the age was in the Lord at that time. Verse 6, praise the Lord, for he has heard my cry for mercy. The Lord is my strength and shield. I trust him with all my heart. He helps me, and my heart is filled with joy. That's how we live like David now. I burst out in songs of thanksgiving. Thank you, Lord. The Lord gives his people strength. Yes, he does. He still does that. He is a safe fortress for his anointed king. Save your people. Bless Israel, your special possession. Lead them like a shepherd and carry them in your arms forever. Folks, and Jesus does that. God does that in the Lord now. Okay, moving on to today's proverb. Proverb 7, 1 through 5. Follow my advice, my son, my people. Always treasure my commands. Obey my commands and live. Guard my instructions as you guard your own eyes. Tie them on your fingers as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Love wisdom like a sister. Make insight a beloved member of your family. Let them protect you from an affair with an immoral woman, from listening to the flattery of promiscuous women. Folks, this is for men and women. Even though he's writing to his sons officially as a king, the Lord speaks this as loving wisdom, loving insight. In other words, the counsel of God. Wisdom is really the Lord, right? And it protects us from the affairs of our hearts and our wandering imaginations and the lust of the eye and the lust of our flesh and the things that would pull us away from God. That's the seduction of life in this time. So God is calling to us to live by his wisdom and in the awe and the fear of the Lord. So that's the proverb for today. And now we go to the New Testament. Today's New Testament reading is Matthew 23, 13 through 39. Wow. Matthew 23, here we go, verse 13. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites? For you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others enter either. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites? For you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Oh, Jesus, what are you saying to religious leaders? To be careful, to live as Jesus and not be religious in your thinking. Blind guides, Jesus says, what sorrow awaits you, for you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools, which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say that to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding? How blind! For which is more important, the gift on the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacred? Here's the deal, Jesus says, verse 20. He doesn't say, here's the deal, that's Carl. When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and by everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on the throne. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes. Do not neglect the more important things. You get that? Wow, Lord, I feel I have to speak this. Church, we can follow the law and do religious stuff and give and pay tithes and offerings, but if we're hateful and we don't call out for justice and mercy to be poured out and live by faith, we're not seeing the whole picture. And Jesus isn't disregarding living a holy life or doing religious things like some people say, well, I don't want to be religious. No, he does say, sure, you should tithe. You should do, religious, be God's people. Yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides, you strain your water so you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you're swallowing a whole camel. I take this to heart too. Gosh, I've been a church guy my whole life. I just have to say this. Church, we have to realize we do want the whole package. So be sure, check your heart, your spirit, your attitude, your feelings for how to live compassionately as Jesus in our day, even in strange times. Sure, we don't disregard living righteously, but if we're doing that, we also have to live with compassion and understanding and mercy and love and give ourselves and call for justice and call for being merciful. And so it calls for me and for all of us to check ourselves like, Lord, am I doing this in the way I live? Wow. Yes, Lord. Verse 25, what sorrow awaits you, teachers, or you religious people of religious law, you Pharisees? You're hypocrites, for you are so careful to clean out the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you're filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. Oh, Lord, help us. You blind Pharisees, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. Man, church, it's a call for us to guard our hearts and the intention of our hearts and really what's on the depths of our being, right? It does. All of us, Verse 27, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you're like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly, you look like righteous people, but inwardly, your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. Lord, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you build tombs for the prophets your ancestors killed, and you decorate the monuments of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. Then you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would never have joined them in killing the prophets. Sure they would have. If we only have religion, if we have religious spirits, we'll fall into the same traps and the same sin as those that came before. Verse 31, but in saying that, you testify against yourselves that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started, snakes. Oh, Jesus is not cutting any slack here. Sons of vipers, how will you escape the judgment of hell? Therefore, I'm sending you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law. But you will kill some by crucifixion, and you will flog others with whips in your synagogues, chasing them from city to city. As a result, you will be held responsible for the murder of all godly people of all time. From the murder of righteous Abel to the murder of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you killed in the temple between the sanctuary and the altar. We're going to read more about these situations, how the religious people killed the prophets of God through the old covenant. Wow. Verse 36, I tell you the truth, this judgment will fall on this very generation. Oh, Jerusalem. I got to finish this out, folks. We just got to hear all of 27 here. Wow. I'm sorry, 23. We're going to finish it out. Yeah, all the way through. It was going to stop at 33, but it's just too strong. We're almost finished. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. Wow. How often have I wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. And now look, your house is abandoned and desolate. For I tell you this, you will never see me again until you say, blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Wow. Church, he's just not speaking this to the Pharisees and Sadducees of the day. When we read Jesus' words, we have to heed the call, and we have to be careful in our own hearts how we're living. It's not enough to have a church. It's not enough to call ourselves Christians. It's not enough to observe the law. It's good to observe the law and to do good things. We fulfill the law in doing all that Jesus has called us to do. And that's what we're called to do, to live as he lived, to be as he was, and to be careful how we're acting out our faith in the real world. Very important. I am so challenged by reading this today, and I hope you are too. God bless you.